Thank you very much. And my apologies that I cannot speak in German. My Austrian mother would be very disturbed by the fact that my German isn't good enough to say what I want to say in German, so I apologize for that. First of all, I'd like to express my solidarity and congratulations to Dalia, to Maya, to all of those who have come together to produce this declaration. This is an extremely important moment for Jews, for Austria, and for Palestine. Anti-Zionism, just like Zionism, is an ideology. And it is as Jewish as Zionism. Both schools of thought were developed by Jewish thinkers. And in fact, for a period of time, anti-Zionism was the predominant ideology amongst Jews, particularly the Jews of Europe. To say that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitic is simply tautological and uninformed. It is also driven by a view that I would argue is itself anti-Semitic. The view that Israel and its actions represent all Jews all over the world, and that all Jews uncritically support Israel. Why do I say that this is itself anti-Semitic? Because it assumes that all Jews think the same. That we uniquely, out of all communities in the world, are only capable of one view, one political position. One of the things that I'm most proud about as a Jew is the fact that we have such a strong diversity of opinion and views on everything. That many of us, most of us, I would argue, are opinionated and argumentative. We have a proud history of dissent and dissidence. And nowhere has this been more on view than in apartheid South Africa, where I grew up, and where a number of remarkable Jewish people stood side by side with Nelson Mandela and the struggle against the racist apartheid system. It is always worth us remembering that when Mandela stood trial for treason, alongside him in the dock were 8 Jewish white South Africans, but that the prosecutor representing the neo-Nazi apartheid state was also a white Jew. This is the reality of the diversity of our community everywhere. When my mother, as Dalia mentioned, a Viennese Holocaust survivor who lost dozens of her family, mainly in Theresienstadt and Auschwitz, where I myself have lectured on genocide prevention for the Auschwitz Institute. When she arrived in South Africa with my father, who was South African, she was shocked, because she understood never again as never again for all humanity. And in South Africa, she saw the majority of people, black South Africans, being treated as the Jews of Europe had been treated during the Second World War. And it's for that reason that she became involved in and engaged in the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, And I followed her into that movement in my teens for exactly the same reason, because never again is for all humanity. At this time, she and I, like many who struggled against apartheid, including Jews who struggled against apartheid, experienced abuse. We were called the N-word lovers. But history showed that we were on the right side of history, and a significant minority of South African Jews were. And I'm incredibly proud of that. Of course, we as Jews experienced anti-Semitism in South Africa. I remember it for the first time at the age of just 9. But also when I made my maiden speech in the South African Parliament, our first democratic parliament. Members of the National Party, the party of apartheid, started shouting anti-Semitic abuse at me. The difference was, this was a new non-racial country, and they were thrown out of Parliament and suspended as a consequence. But I have never experienced anti-Semitism on the scale I have in the last 18 months because of my and other anti-Zionist Jews' support for the struggle of the Palestinian people. It even went so far as a rabbi in the United Kingdom where I live, when I first mentioned that my mother was a survivor, saying, well, you are a capo. Your mother only survived because she was a capo. There is no more disgusting thing you can say to a Jewish person, especially a Holocaust survivor, than that they collaborated with the Nazis. But these are the depths to which people have plumbed in order to uncritically defend the indefensible actions of the Israeli state. What is happening in Palestine is a system of apartheid and probable genocide as determined by the highest court in the world. And this declaration and our presence here today is to say that this apartheid, that this genocide is not in our proudly Jewish names. We do not hold these views in spite of being Jewish. We hold them because we are Jewish. And because our history of suffering as Jews must put us at the forefront of resistance to racism, to discrimination in any and every form. And finally, in thanking the incredibly courageous people in Austria who have developed this declaration and with whom I am going to stand side by side, I'll remind you of the words of my former boss, Nelson Mandela, when he was released from 27 years in an apartheid prison. He didn't emerge to say, I'm free, everything is good in the world. Instead, he said, our freedom, all of our freedom, is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinian people. Thank you.